Welcome to Trump Wire, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The world is witnessing a seismic shift in power, as old alliances are tested and new ones are forged in the heat of global competition. At the heart of this transformation, the US and China are locked in a fierce rivalry, each vying for influence and dominance on the world stage. In this new era, India stands at a pivotal crossroads. Its decisions today will shape not just its own destiny, but also the future of Asia and the global balance of power. The US is urging India to join a coalition to contain China, offering promises of partnership and support. But the stakes are far deeper than simple alliances or diplomatic gestures. India's best path forward isn't to pick sides, but to maintain its strategic autonomy, carefully avoiding entanglement in a superpower conflict that could limit its options. History shows that India's strength has always come from its independence, not from becoming a junior partner in another nation's struggle for supremacy. The US frames its offer as a partnership of democracies, but India's relationship with China is far more complex, marked by rivalry, border disputes, and competition, but also by deep economic ties and shared regional interests. Severing these ties for a distant alliance would ignore the realities of Asia's interconnected economies and the importance of regional stability. This script explores why India should resist becoming a frontline state in America's new Cold War, and instead focus on balancing its relationships, prioritizing peace, prosperity, and its own national interests above all else. Ultimately, India's tradition of independence, resilience, and non-alignment is its greatest asset in a turbulent and rapidly changing world, allowing it to chart its own course with confidence and vision. The intensifying US-China rivalry is not just a contest between two superpowers, it's reshaping global alliances and forcing countries to reconsider their positions on the world stage. At the heart of this shifting landscape is India, now a pivotal player in America's evolving strategy to balance China's growing influence. Washington increasingly views India as a natural counterweight to Beijing, offering lucrative defense deals, advanced technology transfers, and a prominent seat at the table in the Quad alliance. The American pitch is clear. Join a coalition to keep the Indo-Pacific free and open, a phrase that's really code for limiting China's reach and asserting collective power in the region. Joint military exercises, high-level diplomatic visits, and expanded intelligence sharing are all part of a persistent campaign to draw India ever closer to the American orbit. The US frames this as a partnership built on shared democratic values and mutual interests, but beneath the rhetoric, the real goal is to enlist India in its global contest with China. For India, the risks are significant. Aligning too closely with America's priorities could drag it into conflicts and rivalries far from its own borders and interests. India's relationship with China is immediate and deeply complex, marked by tense border disputes but also by massive trade, economic interdependence, and shared regional interests that can't be ignored. Accepting the US framing would mean subordinating India's nuanced and independent regional strategy to Washington's broader global agenda, potentially limiting its freedom of action. India must carefully weigh the true costs of this alliance, economic, strategic, and diplomatic, before making any irreversible commitments. The American offer is undeniably tempting, promising new opportunities and global stature, but it comes with strings attached that could bind India's future choices and autonomy. India's challenge is clear: leverage the benefits of US partnership while fiercely protecting its own autonomy and strategic independence. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the decisions made now will shape India's role in the world for decades to come. India's ties with the US have never been stronger. Defense, trade, and technology cooperation are at an all-time high. Over the past decade, both nations have steadily expanded their partnership, signing landmark agreements and launching joint initiatives in areas like clean energy, space exploration, and cybersecurity. The US is a top trading partner and a key source of investment in military hardware. American companies are investing in India's booming tech sector, while Indian firms are making their mark in Silicon Valley and beyond. Intelligence sharing and joint exercises have deepened, driven by shared concerns over China. The two countries regularly conduct military drills and collaborate on counterterrorism, maritime security, and regional stability. Yet, India's relationship with China is equally significant, marked by rivalry, but also deep economic interdependence. Despite border tensions, both countries recognize the value of dialogue and economic cooperation. China is a major supplier for Indian manufacturing and pharmaceuticals, and both nations are partners in BRICS and the SCO. These multilateral forums offer opportunities for collaboration on global issues like climate change and development. India's foreign policy tradition is non-alignment, strategic independence, not binding alliances. This approach allows India to engage with multiple powers while safeguarding its own interests. The history with China is fraught, but engagement remains essential for stability and growth. Diplomatic channels remain open, and economic ties continue to grow, even amid disagreements. India's real challenge, balancing U.S. partnership with the necessity of stable ties with China. Navigating this complex triangle requires careful diplomacy and strategic foresight. Abandoning one for the other would ignore the realities of geography and economics. India's prosperity depends on maintaining productive relations with both superpowers. India must use its growing importance to advance its own interests, not become a pawn in a superpower rivalry. By leveraging its unique position, India can shape outcomes that benefit its people. The balancing act is delicate but essential. Every decision on the world stage must weigh both opportunity and risk. Strategic autonomy is India's best defense, ensuring its voice remains strong and independent in a rapidly changing world. Aligning with the US against China would expose India to serious risks. The most immediate economic retaliation from Beijing, tariffs, investment freezes, and supply chain disruptions. India's industries, especially manufacturing and pharmaceuticals, rely heavily on Chinese imports. A backlash could cripple growth. Security risks would escalate. Border tensions could turn into a permanent volatile front in a new Cold War. India could be drawn into an arms race, draining resources from development. Diplomatic isolation is another danger. Many Asian nations avoid choosing sides, and India's credibility as an independent power would suffer. A formal alliance would mean outsourcing foreign policy decisions to Washington, even when US interests diverge from India's. India could be pressured to take stances on Russia or Iran that conflict with its own interests. The loss of autonomy would betray the principles that have guided India since independence. India's strength lies in engaging all sides, not in joining a rigid bloc. The choice to side with the US would hit ordinary Indians hard. Small businesses depend on affordable Chinese imports. Disruption means higher costs, job losses, and business closures. Everyday goods, phones, appliances, solar panels, would become more expensive, fueling inflation and shrinking household budgets. The pharmaceutical industry, a global leader, relies on Chinese ingredients. Supply shocks would raise medicine costs. Defense spending would soar to counter a hostile border, diverting funds from schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Every rupee spent on arms is a rupee not spent on development. Rising tensions would create insecurity, distracting from urgent challenges like poverty and climate change. A peaceful neighborhood is essential for India's growth. Choosing confrontation over cooperation would sacrifice the environment needed for prosperity. The well-being of India's people must come first. India's best path is strategic autonomy, not choosing between Washington and Beijing, but charting its own course. India should engage all major powers, US, China, Russia, the EU, maximizing options and protecting its interests. This isn't passive neutrality, it's active, dynamic engagement. Cooperate with the US on shared goals, but avoid military coalitions targeting China. Resolve disputes with China through diplomacy while expanding economic ties. India's tradition of non-alignment remains relevant. Independence earned respect and preserved freedom of action. In a world of complex interdependence, rigid blocs breed conflict. India's strength is as a bridge builder and voice of reason. Strategic balance is the most pragmatic and principled path. India must proactively shape a foreign policy that secures its interests and promotes peace. Reaffirming strategic autonomy, making clear it won't join military alliances, will reduce pressure to choose sides. India should intensify diplomacy with China, aiming for de-escalation and cooperation in areas like climate and infrastructure. A stable relationship with China is a strategic necessity, not a concession. Strengthening India's own economy and technological base is key to true autonomy. Reducing import dependencies will limit leverage from both China and the US. India should champion inclusive Asian security forums, not exclusive blocs. Dialogue and law, not confrontation, should guide regional order. India's destiny is to lead in shaping a balanced, cooperative world, not to follow another nation's agenda. The future belongs to an India that stands independent, strong, and wise.